in research. In the same healthcare space, convert 1,000 beds in 5 teaching hospitals to world-class private wings, used with funding and expertise and management by world-class healthcare companies. What does this do for us? It reverses the amount of money we're spending in India, in South Africa, in the UK, US. It brings back the Nigerians in diaspora who are yearning to come back. In the UK, we have 14,000 nurses. We have 4,000 doctors. In the US, 5,000 doctors. The numbers are just growing every day. These doctors and nurses would like to come back and practice in their own country, but they need to do so within world-class standards and environment and infrastructure. Government hasn't got the cash because we're cash constrained. There are private investors who want to do this. But put them into teaching hospitals. Why? Because the medical students in those teaching hospitals will benefit from the access to the private wings that are world-class. And it will affect their training. It will affect the way they see the practice of medicine. The last area is infrastructure. Here is to do the things that government doesn't need to do any further. There are proven models around railways, around major highways, airports, refineries, pipelines, depots. These things are better run by private sector investors. What's government return by handing over? Increased tax revenues. Because these things will actually run profitably, and they will create employment, and they will pay taxes to the government. And if government is a small shareholder in them, they also get dividends. Nigeria LNG is a clear-cut example. It's a good case study. I think one summit, I think we need to get the Nigeria LNG story on the podium here to tell us the amount of tax revenues that they generated for this country over the last 10, 15 years. And that company is a 49% government shareholding company, 51% private investors. And they work together in a good partnership. And it's a world-class company. So these assets, again, can be done in the same manner. We need to adopt alternative financing options in the area of infrastructure. And finally, we need to privatize power transmission network so we can increase the power generation to achieve 20,000 megawatts. This also assumes that gas will be available at the right price from our partners. So, what's the outcome of all these policy options? Now, remember my earlier slide on economic life cycles? I've come back to it again because the scenarios give us 3 different answers. If we go to the base case, what the base case does for us, which is the scenario given to us by Dr. Shukwa, is that we will continue on this trajectory of decline. This line is a line where it's 0 GDP growth rate, and we will go down into recession. Like I said, 2 quarters of negative growth will give us recession. And when you're in recession, you are in a slump. As economists, what do you need to do to be able to come out of a slump? In a developing country, it will be, blood on the ground everywhere, because you have to lay off people, you have to do all kinds of things, unpleasant things that we can't talk about. So I don't think that best case scenario is a scenario we want to see ourselves in. Even if you come out of it at all, we'll come out of it, probably around 2017, 2018. Okay. If you do the moderate case, what we probably will do is prevent us from getting the recession, and then come out of a decline and begin to see growth. And that growth can probably begin to see that growth probably toward the end of 2016, early 2017. If we do the optimistic scenario, we will actually be able to redress our decline by middle of next year and begin to see growth in a way that by 2017 we are back to our 4, 5%, 6% growth rate and beyond. Again, this is what the Chinese government did. Tiananmen Square, faced with all kinds of policy options and difficulties with a population of over 1 billion people, 1.2 billion at that time. Today, 700 million people in China go to work every day. Largest economy in the world, people get up to go to work every day. And they reinvented that cycle such that that cycle continued on, like I said, for more than 20 years, of more than 8% growth per annum. In closing, we then decided to take a look at the APC manifesto in 4 broad areas: the economy, infrastructure, healthcare, education. And the manifesto were written a number of good ideas in the manifesto. Creating 5 million jobs, giving allowances to unemployed youth corpers for 12 months after they finish NYSC. Yeah. Generating electricity for us 24/7. Making Nigeria the world's leading LNG exporter. Increase number of physicians. Increase national health expenditure. Establish technical colleges. Establish 6 universities of science and tech. Promote 1 meal a day for all primary school pupils. And Dr. Shukwaya in his presentation said he costed it. He did a costing of how much it will cost, the country. Our view is that this manifesto appears to be in line with the policy options under the optimistic scenario. So the only way this manifesto can be achieved is to go the optimistic scenario. If you do another scenario other than optimistic, then many of the things that they promised us under change will not be achieved. And this is very important for the government because we're expecting change. They preach change to us, they sold change to us, we bought change. So, it's about tough choices. How do we make change a reality? How do we get change onto the streets? How do we get the youth of this country to know that change is real, is here to stay for the long haul? And all of this will be in a scenario of a low oil price regime. As you heard the Morgan Stanley forecast, we won't get back to $80 for another 3 or 4 years. So all of this is going to be done in a low oil price regime. Now, what does that mean? It means that eventually when the oil price comes back to where it may be in the future sometime, whether it comes back or not, that will be the icing on the cake. So this economy will grow sustainably, oil price or no oil price. If you don't do that, we won't get the change you're looking for. So final slide, please. So what are we expecting from this summit? A rigorous debate on tough choices. The next 3 days is all about debating about tough choices, so that we can get additional policy options. Like we said, this is just for illustration. This model we built was for illustration. We get additional policy options. What are the key priorities? What is the timing and sequencing of the reforms that we have to embark upon over the next 3 to 4 years? Who's responsible for what part of these reforms? Civil society, government, legislature, private sector. What are the fiscal and other incentives that we need or require in making these tough choices? And why are we making these tough choices? So we can achieve competitiveness, inclusive growth on a sustainable basis. Thank you very much.
Change. We must adopt the optimistic scenario Mr. Lebute has told us. Just a little more using the existing infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Mr. Lebute. And with that, he has provided a good platform for where we're moving to next, because we're going to the first plenary session for the day, which is the Presidential Policy Dialogue. And moderating this session, it gives me great pleasure to invite first Mr. Frank Aigbogun, who is a publisher, Business Day Media Limited. Mr. Aigbogun, please. Thank you, sir. The CEO of the Chair Center Group and the first female chairman of First Bank, Mrs. Ibukun Awushika. And now, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now invite the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.